Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It is Tuesday, November 4th, as we record this. Derek Van Riper here with Eno Saris.
A Southern Hemisphere from Alvarado Street.
Nice.
We are doing this after dark.
After dark, yes. A very late podcast. The focus today will be on free agent rankings, specifically the top of the board, hitters and pitchers, looking basically at the top 10s, give or take, trying to discuss who is worth spending big on in this class. Plenty of good players available. I think it's an average or better class.
I have a hot take.
Okay.
I think it's a bad class.
You think it's a bad class?
And the way that I think it's a bad class is I think that there's going to be a lot of money spent and it's going to look like a good class, but I think there's going to be a lot of bad contracts in this one.
Okay. So you expect a lot of disappointment because of years and dollars. Maybe not disappointment in terms of actual results, but results relative to cash outlay you think is going to be a little underwhelming.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I look around and I see flaws. I just see flaws. And I see a general trend that I believe is true, which is that I think that free agency is getting worse. Just generally.
Yep. That seems to be fair. I'm going to stand by my original statement. I think it's at least an average class, though, because there's depth. It won't be a lot of the guys we talk about today. Maybe this group will be a mixed bag in terms of long-term success, but we'll start stacking them up. We have on the site now, at the time you're hearing this will be available Thursday morning. You can look at the big board from The Athletic up against Keith Law's free agent rankings. So you got multiple sources, one location. We got a little top 10 side by side here. No disagreement up top, right? Kyle Tucker, the best available free agent in this class. And in some order, most lists are going to have Bo Bichette, Cody Bellinger, Alex Bregman, the pitchers like Framber Valdez and Ranger Suárez, a couple of big bats like Pete Alonso and Kyle Schwarber, and then Dylan Cease and Munetaka Murakami, or maybe you'll see Tatsuya Imai. Like, that's a surprise on the big board that he popped all the way up to 10th. So there is disagreement even in the top 10, but mostly the same dozen names or so you're going to see on a lot of different lists, just kind of shuffling the order a little bit based on some longer term expectations. Now, let's just start right at the top. Kyle Tucker, your expectations for him, there's a lot to like in Kyle Tucker's profile. The problem, as you described earlier, is, okay, are we happy with the actual price based on the comps on the market? So what is your expectation in terms of the actual number of years and dollars that Kyle Tucker gets? And with that expectation, do you think the team that gets him will be happy in the long run?
I mean, Kyle Tucker does a lot of good things. He's above average when it comes to walks. He's above average, well above average when it comes to making contact and not striking out. He's a decent fielder. He's got power. He's got legs. I like that he has basically a 5-tool type approach. One problem I have is that it's 5-tool light. You know, it's not necessarily going to be a Juan Soto walk rate. And now I'm not saying that it has to be a Juan Soto walk rate to be good, but the trend is clear. None of his tools are elite. His speed is already falling off. His contact rate is good, but it's not on the it's not elite like a Luis Arias or anything. And most importantly, and this is what I think is true, when you look at the best contracts, the best big contracts, and you look at Aaron Judge, or you look at Juan Soto, or you even look at Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado, guys who have aged fairly well so far on their big deals, one thing is true for all of them. They all have elite bat speed. You know who doesn't? Xander Bogaerts. You know, a lot of the deals that we've thought that were big deals that we're not so sure about anymore. Jake Cronenworth, these like $100, $200 million deals that we're not so sure about anymore, they come with not great bat speed. And one of the reasons that this is a big deal is that bat speed only goes down, you know, and bat speed is one of those things that fuels homers, doubles, even singles. It fuels everything. It's a really important thing. And so when you don't have elite bat speed, you do have these other things, and none of them are necessarily elite. Like, he doesn't play center field. He's not Trey Turner with the legs. You know, there's no thing that really stands out that's elite. And just to put the final sort of nail in the coffin from the way I see it, is that these are the comps for Kyle Tucker. When you use his bat speed, his swing shape, where he makes contact, how much he makes contact, his comps hit 260 with a 330 OBP and a 420 slugging. His comps hit 15 to 17 homers a year. And I'm just worried that he goes to the wrong park and he becomes a 260, 330 OBP, 15-15 guy or 18-18 guy who doesn't play center and doesn't play shortstop and doesn't give you elite defense. I'm not sure that's worth 11 years and $400 million. So that's where I'm coming from on Kyle Tucker.
I think when you are looking at the downside of any player, it's easy to just talk yourself out when, again, we're talking $300+ million. And the projection that Tim Britton had on The Athletic was 12 years and $460 million. Baseball America
60?
had the 11 and 380. Yeah.
Oh, no, I can't do that. You know who his number one comp is in terms of everything? It's Cody Bellinger. Good walk rate, good strikeout rate, not great bat speed. And you know what he doesn't even do as good as Cody Bellinger? Play defense.
Bellinger's defense is starting to slip a little bit. He's not really
to
a
the
center
Kyle
fielder
Tucker
anymore.
level.
To the Kyle Tucker level. I think
No
I
one
think you have
gave
to look at
Cody
him.
Bellinger $400 million at 28 years old.
Yeah, but let's think about it this way for a second. Think about Kyle Tucker as a hitter and an overall player compared to Juan Soto. He's not on Soto's level, but how far away from Soto's level is he? You have to adjust the age difference. Kyle Tucker is going to be 29 in January. When Juan Soto signed his deal last winter, he was 26. He just turned 27 this October. So there's a 3-year age gap.
So
Soto
Kyle
got
Tucker's
15.
already post-peak.
He's already post-peak, but I think he's going to have a long peak because there's a lot of things he does well, as you said before. Soto got 15 years for $765.
And he's a worse fielder. He's a worse fielder. He's a worse base runner, although, he stole a lot of bases this year, but, he's not fast.
I think the question is is the next tier down from maybe the generational sort of player, which I think Juan Soto is, because he's more in that tier. But is that next half tier down worth paying that second tier sort of premium for? That $400 to $500 million. Now, the shorter the deal goes, the better. Duh, right? Because if you play the usual, let's start as a 5-WAR player in year 1, knock a half WAR off every single year, do that over an 11-year deal.
He's never been a 5-WAR player.
He's been so close. He's been
he's been a 4.9 guy 3 years in a row.
Yeah, and in a half season in 2024, he was a 4.2.
But you wouldn't project him for that
player.
now. That's 2-3 years ago. I mean, now I think next year you project him. One projection for Kyle Tucker is 4.4 wins, another is 3.7. Let's call it 4. You start at 4.
Steamer has 125 games on Kyle Tucker, which based on the injuries last year and in 2025,
plausible.
Get it? Plausible. But there was 157 and 150 the 2 years before that. And I don't know how much I'm worried about the hand or the leg as longer term issues, right? It wasn't a back issue. It wasn't a shoulder like Bellinger a few years ago. This is still probably a B health grade sort of player for me. I think the things you pointed out about athleticism in particular, it's weird that he's got such a low sprint speed because Kyle Tucker has been pretty good, very good at stealing bases. So you look at that part of his game and you say, okay, well, that's, having good base running savvy, taking good leads, does those things well. How well is that actually going to age? That's a fair question on a 11 or 12-year deal. If it ends up being that, probably not that well. But look at the barrel rates. Double digits 5 years in a row. Hard hit rate dipped this year to the low 40% range. I think that was the function of the hand injury. He was a different player first half versus second half with the Cubs this year. And I do think Wrigley was a little bit more of a tough fit for him as a home park too. So I think that may have slowed down the production even prior to the injury this year. I think Tucker has some swing decision and damage abilities. Like if you look at the damage app that Robert Orr has, and you look at where he ranks in terms of league-wide percentiles in his ability to do damage, his ability to choose the right pitches and take advantage of those pitches, Tucker's good. Tucker, to me, as a hitter, looks more like a Mookie Betts or a Freddie Freeman, a guy that can do it without premium bat speed because his swing decisions are that good. He does pull the ball in the air effectively. He does do the things you need to do to sort of maximize your value as a hitter. So if you want to give him the 11-year deal and start him at 5 WAR, which maybe is a little generous, knock off a half every year. That's 27.5 WAR over an 11-year deal. What are we paying per win right now in the open market?
11 to 12.
Okay, so that's like $380 million, right?
320. Yeah.
I think I'd give him $400 million. It's just the cost of getting better, man.
If you start him at 4, where the projections are, it's $250 million. So I'm comfortable with him as a $250 million guy, maybe 300 to pay the cost of freight, but 460, I'm just, no, dude. There's nothing elite about him. You know, you're not getting Judge. You're not getting, who are the other 460s that we've had? I mean, even in today's dollars, the other 460s are Trout, Judge, Shohei, Soto. He's just not that.
I think what could keep that number up is that there are so many teams where he fits, though. I mean, you can go through, you could say, hey, the Dodgers could actually use a corner outfield upgrade. That would make sense. The Blue Jays could use him. Philly, Atlanta, Detroit, like San Francisco, Seattle, those are all possible good fits.
Yeah, and I think I just filed a piece about the lessons we can learn from the postseason. And, one of the things that I found from it was that team strikeout rate was remarkably good at predicting postseason home run rate and postseason isolated slugging. So it was just about as good as barrel rate. So teams, I think, are going to look at this year's playoffs and they're going to say, I don't want to just improve my strikeout rate. I don't want to just sign Luis Arias. What I want to do is improve my strikeout rate while hitting the ball hard. And to some extent, that's what Kyle Tucker represents. I mean, I think that the Mookie Betts comp is an interesting one because they both made the most out of power that, bat speed and physical stature and stuff that it's not judging, right? Like they are smaller guys that have made the most out of their power. And they both really have excellent walk and strikeout rates. So, in particular, Seattle, you just lost with, you struck out so many more times than the Blue Jays. You spent all year talking about how you want to strike out less. Kyle Tucker might be the ideal pairing to put next to Julio Rodriguez, who strikes out more and is, more of an aggressive hitter. Might be a really good pairing to have the two of those.
I get as far as Tampa Bay as a possible dark horse, right? Stu Sternberg sold the club, moving back into the Trop by WAR, clearly an everyday guy that would make them better. And they've occasionally, in the past ownership, would pop up for free agents as a runner-up or second runner-up in some cases. And Tampa's home for Kyle Tucker. So I don't know. I don't know what's important to him. Is he the kind of guy that just says, I want as much money as I can possibly have, and I've already done everything I really want to do as far as boxes you can tick in a baseball career? Does he have that done? I don't have a good read on what makes him tick.
And I think that the health thing is just another aspect that's really interesting. I mean, he came from Houston, where we've documented this year, we've talked about, with Chandler Rome, just about how their process is flawed. And by the way, that head trainer is gone in Houston. Mm-hmm. That's part of it. But then you have him having a similar sort of situation with the Cubs, where maybe they were more above board and told us a little bit more about what was happening, but there was an injury that seemed to stretch a little bit. And so if he's not a good healer, and that's already popping up, then maybe we should believe the steamer projection more than the ones that, give him 700 plate appearances next year. This is not a Marcus Semien situation where he's going to max out the volume.
All right, so we're on slightly different pages with Tucker. I think he's a little closer to those top end bats. I know he's not on the same level, but I think the dollars can reflect that. I think you can find a way. Maybe they get creative with deferrals to find a way to give him a huge number that's actually not as costly as it appears on the surface.
I mean, because Ohtani's present value is $460 million.
I'm mad about that. We don't have to talk about that right now. I don't need to go into a bad mood. How do you rank the bats after Tucker in this top tier? Who would be your target? Let's just say you've got the need for some kind of offensive upgrade. What do you think the best option is? Do you like Bo with the assumption of playing him at second base for a good chunk of that deal? Do you want someone like Schwarber or Alonso because they've got that established power track record, and we know power can be huge, especially in the postseason? Like, where would you go with those dollars if you had an ownership group behind you saying, hey, pocketbook's open, go get an upgrade?
I mean, there is no free agent in this class that I really want to go past $250 million for. And you already heard my reasons for Kyle Tucker. Maybe you could push me to 300 on him. But if anybody else in this class is getting even above 200, then I am out. And so my answer is that I want the guy who is going to take the fewest years and is doing the best at the plate right now. And I think that the answer there is Kyle Schwarber. I do not think that anybody is going to give him $200 million. I don't think that is a feasible number for somebody at his state of his career. Kyle Schwarber is 32 years old and he's a DH already. So you're not going to play him in the field. It's not going to give you any value there. And if you play the comp game with other DHs, it's not going to go well. On the other hand, if you play the comp game with other guys with tremendous bat speed and an incredible eye at the plate, I think you'll find better comps. And so I'm pretty excited about the next, 3, 4, 5 years from Kyle Schwarber. I think he can stay above at least 20, 25% better than league average. I mean, he was 52% better than league average this year, Kyle Schwarber was. He was 34 last year, 18 the year before, 29 the year before, 45 the year before that. I mean, I just think he's a perennial slugger that you want at the top of your lineup. I know he doesn't fit any of the hype boxes. He's going to strike out too much. He walks. He's not going to give you defensive value. And all those things are just going to keep the number down. And so what was Tim Britton's projection on him?
5 years and $145 million, which is almost identical to Pete Alonso, because I think if you're honest about Pete Alonso, he's also a DH.
Yeah. And I don't know. I might take the under on that, just because, people are going to, talk about how he's 32 and he doesn't have defensive value. And if it's more like 4 and 125, I'm all over it.
Yeah, I think it's well worth it if your roster is built in a way where you can allocate all of that playing time to one player at the DH spot. If you have a slightly older core group of position players that need to rest their legs a little bit more, then maybe it's not an ideal fit. That would be, I'm almost more worried about blocking the DH spot in real life more than I worry about it in fantasy. I don't really care about it in fantasy.
Well, I mean, I think there's a good mix out there for the Cubs. I played around with Sahadev on that one, but I think it's actually a pretty good fit because it's a young team, and they're pretty good defensively. And they need to replace a bat, and if it's not going to be Tucker, and they had plenty of chances to do it. I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to be out on Tucker, but I'm just saying they may find it more palatable.
I think it's palatable. I don't know how you guys started saying palatable, but
they might find it
just let that one go every time.
Easier to swallow that, a 4
go
or
back
5
to palatable. Cranberry Spindrift, by the way.
Oh, nice.
See, seasonal creep. It's here. No, it's on.
I know that's one that's for me. I mean, one problem that I have with Bo Bichette is that I I look at him and I see way too much Jonathan India, way too fast.
Oh, jeez.
Because
what is happening to you, man?
Well, Bo Bichette's legs are gone. Like he's not gonna steal 10 bags again, you know. And yes, he doesn't need surgery on that, but he wasn't that fast to begin with, and he wasn't a shortstop. He was the worst shortstop in the big leagues the last 2 years. So now you're talking second base. Okay, what does he do for second base? The one thing that India actually does better than Bichette is take walks. So what you're depending on with Bichette is that he continues to go the other way with authority and run huge BABIPs. Batting average on balls in play for his career is 339, projected for a 325. If you take that away, if you make him a league average BABIP kind of guy, then he's going to have a 320 BABIP like next year. That would be the projection next year. If you gave him a league average batting average on balls in play, he would have a 320 OBP. He'd have a 270 batting average. He'd have league average power. And we don't even know what his defense would be at second base. You know, we're assuming it would be good, but he was a really bad shortstop. So this is not the one I'm hitching my wagon to. It is not Bo Bichette.
Yeah, I want Bo to get paid by the Blue Jays. I want him to stay in Toronto. I think it just makes a lot of sense for him to keep playing in that organization. It's sort of the let's retain Bo and then add something else plan that I want for them, because I think you need to go up another level to keep pace with the other elite teams in the American League.
You know,
yeah, and the comp that came up in Tim's article is the Willy Adames deal, 7 for 182 to the Giants, and we're 1 year into that Willy Adames deal.
It does,
and you can already say like, would you do that again? Like even just after seeing year one, and I asked that question as someone that really likes Willy Adames. I think he's an automatic positive in the clubhouse. I think he's the kind of guy that can.
And he was a 4-win player. It just
he can hit 20 or 25 homers in that park like, year over year for a while. I don't know how long he's going to be a shortstop. That's true of everybody at the position. Like it's just it's the nature of playing that spot. But if that's the comp, like that's a price that I just can't get on board with. And I say that as someone who wants to see everyone make every possible dollar they can. The concern I've always had about Bo Bichette is I think it's even a more narrow skill set. Like your concerns about Tucker are actually my concerns about Bo, where I'm like, okay, already doesn't steal bases, doesn't draw walks, has that ability to go get pitches outside the zone. I don't think that which generally ages well. That is a skill that I think it's a young player's skill.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of evidence that you are correct. I mean, Bill Petty did the aging curves, and the thing that ages the worst among hitters is contact outside the zone. This is absolutely the type of player you don't want when he's 32 years old. Contact outside the zone at 29 and 30 years old just falls off the table. And we've seen it with Josh Hamilton, Javi Baez, Pablo Sandoval. We've seen a lot of different players that have just done this, and they haven't kept it up. I mean, I think you even seen it way before you thought you would with Luis Robert Jr. I mean, there's a lot of players that have the skill set and are good for a while, and it doesn't age well.
Do we have any extra hope that Bo is making some adjustments, though? And that comes from like the StatCast O-swing percentage at 33.8% this year was actually the lowest of his career. So he's knocked that down a bit, making slightly better decisions.
We're big David Popkins fans here. You know, that's the hitting coach there, the new hitting coach for Toronto. And, you know, he's talked about intent, swinging. They're aggressive, but they're aggressive in the zone. Maybe there's a coaching effect there. We've also looked in the past at the effect of hitting coaches, and the number one effect that a hitting coach can have, or at least has been shown to have in the past, is on swing rates and on chase rates. And so, you know, maybe there's a little bit of a Popkins effect there, but even at that lower number in terms of chase rate for Bo Bichette, it's still not a good one.
Yeah. So I'm worried if it's going to be 8 years, because I don't know if even for the last half of that deal, if you're going to be really happy with what you're getting from Bo as a hitter. And I think we're in agreement that he makes a lot of sense as someone that's going to move off of shortstop sooner rather than later, maybe even at the beginning of a long-term deal. Like I wouldn't rule that out.
A return to Toronto would be really interesting because I think Andres Giménez would be the shortstop next year.
Yeah.
It would just have happened around his injury, but
just, hey, it kind of gives them a good excuse, good reason to do it and say, oh, this actually worked better. And Bo gets paid, says, oh, I'm happy, I got my money. Let's just do what's best for the team. Then maybe that actually all works out. Let's talk about Cody Bellinger for a second. I didn't realize how weird Cody Bellinger's home road splits were this year. They were extreme, though. 302, 365, 544 at Yankee Stadium. 241, 301, 414 on the road. Does that give you some pause?
He's a lefty. He likes to put the ball in the air.
Likes to put the ball in the air. It's a low strikeout rate like Kyle Tucker, but he's not walking as much as Tucker does right now. Bellinger did that earlier in his career, but we've got a 5-year snapshot where he's a 7 to 8% walk rate sort of player. Doesn't crank the barrel rate up into that 9-10% range that you'd hope for with that low strikeout rate. He runs a little light there. I mentioned the shoulder injury a little bit earlier. Turns 31 in July. I kind of look at Bellinger and think that his latest foray into free agency might come up a little bit underwhelming too.
Yeah, and I think we have plenty of precedent for that. We've seen the past deals that he's had, and I'm not sure that he did the right thing by declining a $25 million player option, but I do think that this may be one of his best chances to get a good deal, because once you get past 30, if you're not Kyle Schwarber with the elite bat speed, and he's not, Cody Bellinger has the 20th percentile bat speed, and you're not somebody, who else signs big deals after the 30? Nobody really. So this is his last chance to say, add up all my deal years that they may be in decline, but I can get you in the next 5 years, probably 10 WAR. Is that right? That's a little bit aggressive.
2 a year for
like
5.
7 WAR.
He could probably. I think over 5 years he could get to 10.
Yeah,
the defense in the corners is still really good, and the thing that I had never really thought about until Brendan Cuddy mentioned it on the show a few weeks ago now is that playing left field in Yankee Stadium is particularly difficult. But Bellinger graded out as just below average in center and well above average in both corners, which I think bodes very well for kind of keeping his floor for this deal at a good level. I don't think someone's given him 8 years, though, are they? Like, he's on the wrong side of 30 already.
Yeah, I can't do that. And I can't do that with the skill set. But, if it's 5 and 100, 125 or something, I can maybe do it. And I could maybe do it if I were the Yankees to play left field and then maybe trade Jason Dominguez, because I don't buy this idea that Jason Dominguez is going to be that bad in left and then going to be good in center. So I wonder if there's a center fielder out there that they could pry loose with Jason Dominguez, even if it is one, like a Brenton Doyle that has some flaws, somebody that's going to play a plus center field for them for the next 3 to 5 years. Then you make all of your defense better, and that's been a problem for the Yankees, right? I think that's a decent plan. But if I'm the Giants, like how nervous would I be if I'm the Giants to sign Cody Bellinger? I think I'd be very nervous.
I think I'm nervous if it's 6 or 7 years. If it's 4 or 5, I can live with the last year of the deal maybe not being great, because I think that's sort of built into the expectations for a lot of players like this. But I do think the way Bellinger's career has trended, like the strikeout rate pop in 2021, in 2022, only for the return to the pre-21 levels these last 3 seasons. I don't know how you could have predicted that, like, realistically. And I'm not sure how you completely how do you give yourself confidence that it's not going to happen again? And was it just health in 2021 coming off that shoulder injury? Because that was a 2020 playoff celebration injury when he hurt his shoulder, right? So I don't know. It just seemed like he was lost for the better part of 2 years at the plate. And that was a kind of a peak age or near peak age at age 25 and 26. So that's always going to be in the back of my head.
We don't have the bat speed for those years. But my intuition is that he took a big hit in bat speed with that injury and that he never really got all the way back.
Does seem like the approach is mature enough, though, where he can do well for a few more years before things start to break down on him. But yeah, now you've got the pessimism just like raining down on me. I'm looking at everybody. I'm like, ugh, Pete Alonso. Ugh, why would I want Pete Alonso on my team? But Alonso versus Schwarber, I think, is a fair toss-up. I think you could argue either side of that one. Alonso's a few years younger. I think as long as you stop playing him at first base, where he's going to hurt you defensively, more likely
but he doesn't
than not.
have that elite approach in terms of walks and strikeouts. I mean, the strikeout rate has gotten better for Alonso, but I think that at some point soon you're going to return. It's always a bell curve for players. So Alonso's going to return to 25 and 26% strikeout rates at some point, I believe. Does not really have the plate approach that, Kyle Schwarber has dialed in. He does have good bat speed, and he is going to hit homers for a while. And I kind of like, he does have that, like, there's a type of, I have a presentation this weekend about, the bat speed metrics and all the new bat metrics. And, one thing that I figured out was that, the best hitters have high tilt swings and let the ball travel. And that is the way Alonso has trended. He has become a higher tilt guy with every year. The bat speed has stayed elite, and he's let the ball travel. And what that just lets you do, if you have the elite bat speed, is it lets you see the ball longer. That's improved his strikeout rate. It lets you go the other way for power and also pull for power. So, Pete Alonso, the bat, is probably my second favorite bat in this class, next to Kyle Schwarber. But he has the same questions when it comes to defensive value. He's not young at 30. And you might be locking in your DH for a long time. And my intuition is that he's going to get more years than Kyle Schwarber, just because he's younger.
Yeah, 2-year age gap between them, but I think teams are going to look at them very similarly. I think Alonso consistently running lower K rates than Schwarber does bode pretty well for how he'll age. And he's done it his whole career in a place that's actually pretty difficult to hit, too. I mean, imagine Pete Alonso ending up in a ballpark that boosts homers. Like, what could he do in the front side of a deal like that? Colorado. Well, I think with Pete Alonso, he doesn't have that World Series championship. Like, what matters to him might be different. That's where the Tucker thing was so hard for me to read. Like, he's got a World Series already. Will one of these
guys take money for a team that doesn't look like a contender right now?
Right.
And will they buy into the story? Yeah, will they buy into the story? We'll make a contender. Do they just take the money because they don't care? I mean, Alonso got pretty close to the mountaintop, but hasn't gotten all the way there. And he was he had that big homer against the Brewers, and he may just want that taste back. And
did he have that home run? Did that happen? That happened? Pete Alonso hit a home run against the Brewers? The big one?
Yeah, he did.
I just died on my living room floor like Pac-Man.
The evidence is that he might care about such things because, he could have signed probably in a couple of different places last time and he went back to the Mets.
Yeah. I think that's still the most likely outcome, but I don't think it's as likely this year as it was last year. Last year, it felt like a certainty. This year, there's a few different things the Mets could try as an alternative if they want to go another direction. And that brings me to another name that will pop up on some top 10s, but not all top 10s. Munetaka Murakami. I can't figure out what is happening with his strikeout rate. 3 years now with 28% or higher strikeout rates and NPB right around peak age. And I don't feel great about that because I still think there is a reasonable gap between the quality of the pitching in MLB versus NPB. Is there anything in his approach? Does he work deep counts? Is it something that is actually somewhat correctable? Or are we going to see a jump into the low 30% range, at least to begin his time in the big leagues? I think that's a major question for me about the bat right off the top. And then, of course, defensive fit. I think there's a lot of questions about where exactly Murakami will be ideally deployed defensively in the big leagues as well.
Yeah, I mean, Munetaka Murakami has been a revelation in Japan. He has, the kinds of WRC pluses that you see from Shohei Ohtani. Just, he had a 225 WRC plus 1 year. That means he's 125% better than league average. In that year, he hit 56 homers, and he broke all sorts of records that year. He's had 10 WAR seasons, wins above replacement seasons. That's 10 WAR seasons are the kinds of seasons that Shohei and Trout have. So he has done all this with a terrible glove. He is not a good defender. Even there, he's gone towards first base and DH. Here, he'd almost certainly be a DH. In America, somebody might try him. Maybe think they with excellent positioning they can get more out of him. But by my numbers, Munetaka Murakami is a DH. What he does well is he has the Schwarberian package to some degree. He has the great eye at the plate, and he really waits for his pitches, and he has extreme bat speed. This year, he hit a ball 114. In his career, he's hit a ball 117. Just to give you an idea of people who hit the ball 117 or better, that's Ellie De La Cruz, Bobby Witt Jr., James Wood, Aaron Judge, Ketel Marte, Ohtani himself. These are the guys with premier bat speed. So he has the bat speed. But the problem with Munetaka Murakami, and this comes from Delta Graphs and Lance Brozdowski, he has an in-zone contact rate of 72%. 72% this last year. He misses fastballs in the zone. He has a hole that's developing up and in. Fastballs up and in. I feel like that's a thing that people will exploit here in America. If you just take his in-zone contact rate and you take his bat speed, or in this case, max exit velo, which is a great proxy for bat speed, and you look for comps, you get this list. And it's not a great list, to be honest. Christopher Morel, Luke Raley, the number one comp for Munetaka Murakami for me? It's Joey Gallo. Gallo. That's my number one comp. If you want to say he's Jose Siri without center field defense, that's another good comp. I am way out on this one. I mean, there's a possibility he comes over. Apparently, Shohei Ohtani's zone contact rate in Japan was 74%. So maybe he could get it on the upper end of this. Will Benson has a 77% and good bat speed. He hit slug 419 this year. But nobody on this list is worth the money that you're hearing about right now. Luke Raley, J.D. Davis, Gabriel Arias, Patrick Wisdom. This is not a good list. I actually believe that we won't see anything close to the projected numbers from Munetaka Murakami because I think the teams are looking at these kinds of numbers. What you will see is maybe a 1 or 2 year prove it deal. Maybe some team puts some options in there, protects themselves, there's some way to get him over here and just see if maybe with American approach, he's got something going that didn't show over there. But most likely, he's going to strike out more than 30% of the time because that's what he's doing in Japan. You're most likely going to strike out more in America when you come over. So now you're talking about a 35% strikeout rate. He better spank that ball. And he better do it very often. When he hits the ball, he's got to go way far. And even then, talking about like a 220 average, 300 OBP, 420 slugging. It's just all of those strikeouts are going to affect him.
I mean, you can look back at some of the Gallo seasons early in his career where there was negative defensive value, slight negative defensive value. He popped 40 homers with strikeout rates above 35% and was still a 2-WAR guy. Like you can be a useful big league player if you're extreme in that way. It's really interesting, though, that Ohtani's zone contact rate wasn't that much better.
But Ohtani was 22. Murakami's 25. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like if he's doing this at 22, then, maybe you could say with the physical tools, he's going to get better. But at 25, he's pretty close to his peak. I think that Gallo is actually a double-edged sword. People are going to hear Gallo and think, oh, he's going to be terrible. There's no reason to sign him. However, if a team could get a free Gallo, if a team could get a Gallo for $15 million, maybe 2 and 30 or something, they would give it a shot, because it might be a shot in the arm like the Guardians, need power. They've been playing around with the John Kensky Noels and these types, the Franmil Reyeses, maybe this could be their new Franmil Reyes, just a guy who's going to come in here and hit for power and strike out and everybody else won't strike out. And that's how we make it work.
So the other bat we got to talk about before we get to the pitchers, Alex Bregman. He's top 5 on both lists. He's 4th on Keith's list, 3rd on the big board. We just saw an opportunity for Bregman last winter, and he got this deal that had the opt-out on it with the Red Sox, and he was playing well before the injury to start the year. It's very, very difficult for me to look at the overall result and say he's lost something, because health was a factor in all of this. But also, like, it was another great home park. Fenway was a great fit for Alex Bregman's skill set. Still a low strikeout rate. This guy doesn't chase. 44.4% hard hit rate this year from Bregman's actually a career best in his age 31 season. Turns 32 just after the season opener in 2026. Defensively, I think we're starting to see a little bit of slippage, but he's still a good defensive third baseman. What do you think this winter holds for Alex Bregman?
I think he made a mistake. I think he should have kept that high AAV and gone for another year and tried to have an even better year, because, yeah, if you prorate this season out, it would have been better than a 4-win season, and it would have been better than maybe the last 2 years, and it would have been a pretty good argument to make on the open market. But I don't think you can make that argument to teams where they're like, oh, just prorate me out, dude. Just ignore the bad hamstring injury that I had, because teams are going to be like, no, that hamstring's probably going to pop back up again. That same hamstring is probably going to pop back up again. And what I see with him is actually very close to the Kyle Tucker package, which is, a collection of strengths that none of them are really elite. And the only way that I'm interested in Alex Bregman is if it's, like $120 million deal or something, where I don't have to put out that $400 million outlay, and I improve my strikeout rate and I improve my walk rate. But I also know that, it's possible he may not want to come to my park in Seattle. It's
right,
possible he may not want to come to my park in San Francisco. And so, I have to know that it has to be the right park. I kind of feel like he got out of that deal to have more leverage and try to go back to Boston. That's what I think. And try to I think he saw the injury and is more likely to prioritize years and full value over average annual value like he did last time. And so he may not get the average annual value that he just opted out of, but he may see this as a chance at 31 to just say, okay, all right, I'm going to get another $100 million deal, and I'll have made, $250 million in my career, and that'll be fine.
I think if you just look at Tucker versus Bregman, like a 3-year snapshot, Tucker's a 147 WRC plus during that span. Bregman's a 122. Bregman's a couple years older already.
Yeah.
The defensive floor at third base is still good, but I think there's more questions about the power that Bregman has. I think those are pretty clearly on display already, and they've been there the entire time.
Seems like a consolation prize for the Kyle Tucker loser.
Which isn't necessarily a terrible outcome if it ends up being something closer to like 5 and 150 or something, because then it's a much smaller commitment. And I think it does still make your team a lot better. I think the Bregman fits are somewhat limited. I think he's seeking a Matt Chapman deal. It's exactly what Tim Britton had as his comp for a contract.
And I'm okay with that because, I think the Chapman deal is working out all right. It's not that expensive, and with defense, and it's kind of like the flawed player deal, right? Like he's not perfect, but he's also not going to cost as much as the other guys, and he's going to help you in the meantime. The fits I see, the Yankees come to mind. Jays, if they
lose
on from Bo Bichette,
if they don't keep Bo, I could see the Jays getting in there for Alex Bregman.
But you could maybe move Jazz to center field. If you're in New York. I do think that the park matters. We found out that the Tigers were, a real contender for his services. And maybe Tigers Park is not as unfriendly to righties as people think, but he did choose the Red Sox over the Tigers. Does he change his mind now and go back to the Tigers? The Tigers seem like they're waiting for somebody to take their money. Like not like a $400 million contract, but I could see them playing around. Scott Harris comes from the Cubs and from the Giants. And what have the Cubs and Giants done? They've mostly like done the mid-major deal, right? The sort of $100 or $200 million deal, not the 400. Until Buster Posey took over and traded for Rafael Devers, which is a departure from what they'd done before.
Well, you trade for the mega deal that you can't get someone to sign. It was the only other way to do it.
But yeah, I mean, I think the best fits. I mean, I just don't think he's going to take the Mariners or Giants money. I think that he's got a borderline case for the Hall of Fame at 43 wins above replacement. I think he's going to prioritize winning. You could say that going to the Mariners would prioritize winning. But it may also affect your overall numbers for the Hall of Fame in a way that that WRC Plus may not register with voters the same way as raw numbers. So, I mean, I'll put the Mariners on the list. I'll put the Tigers on the list because they were close before. I'll put the Red Sox and Yankees on the list. I mean, the Dodgers may move on from Max Muncy.
Yeah. I think there's going to be enough teams interested where he's going to get something close to what he wanted. I think he will end up beating the total money owed. Yeah,
trade Alec Boehm and put Bregman in at third.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that being an option because the Phillies seem like one of the bigger favorites for Tucker. And if they were to miss out, then maybe fallback option is a combination of players, right? That could always be, sometimes it's 2 upgrades instead of 1 if you miss out on the biggest fish out there in free agency. Let's take a look at the starting pitching. Top of the class in some order: Framber Valdez, Ranger Suárez, Dylan Cease. How do you rank those 3 if you're looking at this year's group?
I think you just got to go Framber, Cease, Suárez. I think if you look at their comps, it's Framber with the most wins above replacement over the last 3 years, the most innings. There's the kick against Framber is he doesn't strike out guys, but he actually has above average strikeout rate over the last 3 years and a better than average walk rate. Keeps the ball on the ground with the best of them. He has good stuff, and he doesn't have bad command as much as it sometimes shows up in the postseason. I'm going to admit Framber Valdez in the postseason has walked a lot of guys and looked shaky, but that's been the only place where really the command has looked that terrible. I would say he has average command, really great stuff, keeps the ball on the ground. He's a great fit, I think, for some of the hitter parks. If I was Boston, I'd be really interested. I think that the top teams have to be interested in the services, and I would go for Framber. I know that the big question is makeup, big cross up that he had at the plate. There's been other, sort of things along the way. The reason, it looks like Houston's willing to let him go. That's kind of a red flag. So there's some red flags here. I'm hoping that the red flags keep the money down enough where I'm interested, because this is a flawed group. Because you can say Dylan Cease. Well, Dylan Cease has the best stuff of the group, probably. I mean, year over year, and the best strikeout rates of the group, but also the highest walk rates, the highest ERA of the group, and you got to be worried that he's maxed out, that he's tried everything that you want to take it. Do you want to show him a changeup? He's tried eight of them. You want him to throw his curveball more? He's done that at times. You want him to throw a sinker? He's tried that. So, I wonder, you have to really believe that you have the key to unlocking Dylan Cease to want to pay him that much. And if all the projections are right, maybe I could just take Suárez if he's the cheapest of the 3, because I think they're all pretty good. But if I want somebody to, let me ask you this way. Who do you, of these 3 guys, do you want to start game 1 or game 2 of a playoff series?
It's a great question, because Ranger Suárez has a great playoff resume. So you have the confidence, he's done it before, but he also, has 4 ticks less on his fastball? What happens if he loses some? I think we've even seen some stretches this year. Yeah. If he's 89-90, I know the secondaries are good, but if he's 89-90 with the fastball, you want that guy starting game 1 of a series? Probably not. I think it's Dylan Cease, but there is something there as far as it having to be the right organization. And the fact that the Padres couldn't
with
get him
Ruben
back.
Niebla.
Like, they couldn't get it back to last year's level. It makes me wonder, is this just that high variance profile, the guy that has a little bit of a walk problem, this year had a little more of a home run problem than he ordinarily does? I couldn't figure it out as it was happening. I thought mid-season, I thought Dylan Cease was one of the best clear-cut, like top 10, top 15 type pitchers you could trade for and maybe get a discount because people were upset with how his season had gone. He finished with a 4.55 ERA and a 133 whip.
And yet the projections are all for $150, $200 million deals, right?
I guess. I guess that's the expectation, but what is he missing in his arsenal? And how did the Padres with Ruben Niebla not find something that like leveled him out a little bit?
I mean, Nick Pollock says it's the cutter. It's missing the cutter. He's been yelling about that on the craft for a while. And, I could see it because a cutter would give him something he could throw in fastball counts, But I also know Dylan Cease, and I know he's tried so many things, and I'm sure he's tried a cutter. It's not like you're going to be the first person. Hey, Dylan, have you tried a cutter?
So I think the problem would be that wouldn't a cutter just look too much like his slider?
I mean, the slider's a gyro slider. It's a hard gyro slider without much break. Yeah.
I just think that's probably why it wouldn't be as effective as it can be for other guys. I think it would look too much like a pitch he throws a lot, and it wouldn't have as much of an impact as we would hope. But yeah, I mean, he threw 6 different pitches this year, even though 4-seam slider is what you're going to get 80% of the time.
Yeah, it's just possible the other ones are not as good. I mean, I know that he tried a bunch of changeups, but I think to some extent the hitters can see them because the changeups are all super weird. Like he threw an Ephus changeup for a while, and like
I hated that pitch so much. It made me so angry.
Yeah, I mean, he's just, I don't know. Maybe there's something. Maybe it's a little bit like Bryce Miller, where like the release points are different enough where people just spot them coming out of the hand. But the only way that I want Dylan Cease is if he comes for like $75 million less than Framber. Then I can tell myself, oh, I just signed the Robbie Ray, Kevin Gossman deal. Then that was like $125 million. The new version of that would be like $150. If I get him for $150 and Framber goes for $210, then I tell myself, I got the Robbie Ray, Kevin Gossman. He's going to be good. He's going to be good some years, bad some years. But over the end of it, I won't have spent too much, and he'll be like a 2-3 for me. He'll be 2 some years and a 3-4 in the other years.
I have for years insisted that Dylan Cease and Blake Snell are similar in their statistical profile, even though Snell has more pitches that he can throw consistently. That's very clear at this point.
Yeah, what did Snell get? Like 180?
5 and 180? Was that the final number that he got?
I
don't think you can give him that. I don't think you can give.
I don't
Dylan
want to
Cease
give him that
yet.
because Snell had better success. A little bit more injury, but better success. So, I mean, if I'm getting Dylan Cease for 5 and 150, and somebody else is getting Framber for 7 and 210, I'll take Cease.
Yeah, I think it just has to be the right organization, and I'm on
have
board.
A dark horse.
Who's a dark horse for Dylan Cease?
There might be a pitcher I like better than anybody else in the top 3. There might be a pitcher from Japan.
Okay.
That I like better. So now, Tatsuya Imai is coming over. He's short. He's a short righty. Short righties don't have great outcomes. We talked about this with other Japanese people. We talked about this with Yamamoto when he got his big deal. He doesn't have elite strikeout minus walk rates like Yu Darvish or Shohei Ohtani or the top guys when they came over. His are more like Masahiro Tanaka, which, hey, wait a second. Masahiro Tanaka was pretty good. All right.
It was.
So let's go through this. What's supposed to be so bad about this guy? What's so bad about this guy? He has a flat fastball. If you're looking at just IVB, it's no good. He has a 13.5-inch IVB on his fastball. Well, guess what? He has a 20-degree arm angle. He is 5'0", and his arm is out there with a 20-degree arm angle. Now let's compare his vert and his horizontal with only people with his arm angle. What do we get? Joe Ryan. We get Joe Ryan's fastball. If you take all of his comps, Joe Ryan, Luis Castillo, Casey Legumina, if you take all the fastballs that are in his grouping with his arm angle, vertical and horizontal, you get an above average fastball. Now you got an above average fastball. Guess what else he throws? He throws the weird backup slider that Trey Savage throws. Now I don't even know if that's a good thing for Trey Savage. I'm not going to put that as a good thing. I'm just going to say he's got a weird slider. You know what he does have? A great splitter. And you know what was just thrown more often this postseason than ever before in any postseason by a factor of 3? Splitters. It's going to be the year of the splitter next year. We're all going to do it. We're all jumping in. It's seam shifted wake. We know how to make splitters good now, and everyone's going to be throwing them. The splitter has the best results in the big leagues, and all the Japanese guys have come over that have thrown a splitter have thrown it more often in the big leagues. Yamamoto just came off 3 straight starts where he threw the splitter more than the fastball. And Yamamoto's the MVP of the World Series. I think Imai is going to come over. It might be a little bit more than Cease. I think it might be a little bit less than Framber. I think it might be sort of like a $150 million deal. I'm giving it to him. Maybe I need some opt-outs. Maybe I need some security in the deal. But I'm giving that deal to him because I love short release points with weird fastballs. So what if I told you could get Joe Ryan it's a year younger? I mean, that's the whole thing. Joe Ryan is here and he's a known commodity. You could trade for Joe Ryan. You could do that. You could use some assets. You could pay him the money, or you could use none of your minor league assets, and you could just go get a Joe Ryan clone that's a year younger, and you could just spend money. So I know that's not for every team, and I know there's some risk there. So you can't necessarily, if you're the Athletics or something, be like, this is our big deal, and then oops, we're wrong, and we have no more money for anybody else. It's not, there is a limited amount. And I know there's people who say, well, just send them to the Dodgers, but at some point the Dodgers run out of roster space. And if you're Imai, you might say, do you even have room in the rotation for me? Or am I going to end up in the bullpen like Roki? And do I want that? I think Imai is a great fit for another team that has some money. I think the Giants really need some upside in the rotation. They need some youth in the rotation. Some of the guys haven't worked out that they've had. They traded away some of their guys. They have the money. And I think they would like to stock up on, have their own Jung-Hoo Lee and Tatsuya Imai and have their own sort of we have international flair too. It's not just the Dodgers, and build up their own sort of, cosmopolitan team that could really go. So I think Imai is like a good fit for the Giants. I think he's a decent fit for the Yankees and the Blue Jays. We've talked about needing to spend money, but not wanting to maybe spend the whole Framber deal. Anybody who is turned off by wanting to give Framber Valdez $200 million is going to be interested in Imai. Because if you say that you like Dylan Cease at $160 million, Dylan Cease is no sure thing himself.
Yeah, I think that's the main concern you'd have is that you have the inconsistency with Cease is already a known. And that came with 2 of those seasons in a very pitcher-friendly ballpark with a pitching coach that we really believe in. So it's all sort of there as far as your ceiling and your floor. We saw it in the last 2 seasons from Cease. With Imai, maybe it's just, hey, for the first year or 2 especially, the lack of familiarity could play up. Maybe the fastball is not quite as good as Joe Ryan's, but what if it's 80% as good as Joe Ryan's? What if the secondaries are a little better than Joe Ryan's? Yeah. That's always a possibility too. I mean, that pitch has screwball action on it. That was in the Keith Law write-up. It's okay, that's definitely a little weird. It's a different sort of look.
But I mean, if you could put a poll up around baseball right now, and would you like a low slot Trey Savage? How much are we willing to pay for it? We'll find that out. The poll is free agency.
Yeah. The Tim numbers from the article. Tim Britton had 8 years and $190 million with roughly a $30 million posting fee on top. But
I still think Framber might be ahead of that. So it's sort of a way to spend less. And then maybe not. Maybe the fact that he hasn't proven himself and he's not coming over with Yamamoto numbers in Japan. He's not the same level. Like I said, he's more of a Tanaka level.
So in the time since a lot of the free agent rankings were put together, we saw that Shota Imanaga also becomes a free agent again. Like, okay, we've seen 2 years of Shota in the big leagues. Results have been generally very good. A 3.28 ERA and a 101 WHIP in 318 innings. He's now 32 years old. So that's factored into. It's not going to be as long of a deal as what some of the other big names get.
Is down, and the strikeout rate was down year over year. That's I think pretty worrisome.
But you, again, just kind of like on a straight up, like they're both going to be multi-year deals. The Imai deal is probably going to be a much larger deal. You prefer Imai?
Yeah, I want the 95 mile an hour short. I want the 95 mile an hour arm that's 4 years younger.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I do think what we saw with Shota is a little bit of the concern I have with Ranger Suárez. Like the difference from 92 to a little below 91 is massive right now. It seems like
home
that's
run rate
where
spikes, strikeout rate goes down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I guess the good news is if you are looking at Ranger Suárez, if your team is in the mix for him, I mentioned the playoff resume before, you also have to consider that the regular season body of work, half of those starts have come in a very difficult place to pitch in Philadelphia. So maybe just having a neutral home park, even if it's not a pitcher-friendly environment, also helps stabilize that floor a little bit.
Yeah, but if you're giving me 3 guys out of the top 10 of either top 10, I'm taking Imai, I'm taking Schwarber.
You're really stuck on the next one. You only want 2. You're saving it. Bregman. Yeah, I think there's enough paths for Bregman to just be fine for 4 or 5 years, even if he's not going to be a 5-WAR player again. Like that could be over. It's not impossible at the beginning of a deal that you still get something like that. I mentioned the defense sliding a little. It's not bad. Like that alone could help drive up that number quite a bit. Anything
also
else?
Like some of the intangibles for Bregman, he's a guy that I think he's come from the Astros, he's come from the Red Sox, so like he's going to have some of that elite coaching, and he's like a guy who's going to talk about, coaching and hitting in these modern terms and broadcast to my other hitters that like, hey, these are things we care about. This is how we want to think about baseball this way. So I think that's a good addition sometimes too.
Somehow, like Alex Bregman to the Mets also makes a lot of sense. Just get out of that Brett Beatty, Ronnie Mauricio, Mark Vientos spiral and just solve it.
Yeah, my bet is Boston though. I think he's just going to use it for leverage and go back.
Well, and compared to the money they were going to pay Rafael Devers, they'll still have a good third baseman at a much lower price and for a lot fewer years in the grand scheme of things too. So,
or an actual first baseman, third baseman.
Well, actually, yeah. There's
defensively.
There's that as well. Anything else from the top of the board? We're going to dig into the middle and the possible values on a future episode. But anything else from the guys up top that we didn't get to?
No, I mean, like I said, I think that there are some pitfalls here. I think, truth be told, I'm into the Framber thing a little bit. I think that there's just something. The one thing I worry about is maybe arm injury and losing a year to TJ, but it just seems like the price of business these days. And if you can retain that, it's plus velo with plus sink at a time that everyone's talking about going back to sinkers. You know what I mean? I just think it's pretty nasty stuff. And you've heard the way Jed talks about him, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really hard to face him. And you get a lefty. And I know there's these secondary concerns, but especially if I have a group where I'm like, you know what? We have good leaders here. We don't need Framber to be a leader. Yeah. We just need to fit him into our culture.
So you're signing him in a situation where maybe you have a co-ace. You're not bringing him in as like, this is our number one. This is our opening day starter. He's clearly our best guy. You like him more as a 1A, 1B.
More like the rich getting richer, I could put him next to Crochet, or I could put him next to, in Dodgerland, put him somewhere, Like if you put him in, yeah, I think Gausman would get the premature of being the leader because he'd been there longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you might pay Framber more than Gossman, but he just went with them to the World Series, so he'd still be opening day first, ace. So I think that could work on the Blue Jays. I think it could work on the Giants too, because Logan Webb is, the guy in command.
Yeah, I think the personality of the catcher seems pretty important too. Like given, I mean, really, like just
you want a nice veteran catcher. It's true.
You want a veteran catcher that is just like gonna command the respect. I mean, Framber was also openly frustrated about the way defense was being played behind him too. He's very critical of that. So I think this is a guy that has pretty strong conviction in
maybe
what he thinks should be happening
Patrick
around
Bailey
him.
They're just going to be like, you want to yell? We yell too.
I mean, yeah, maybe
I'm
that's
the best
exactly
defensive
right.
catcher in baseball.
Yeah, like we know what we're doing, so maybe that ends up being a really good fit. But boy, if it's over $200 million on Framber, I'm probably out on Framber. Like I see why you would do it.
That's like I don't want to spend $200 million on an arm, and it doesn't feel like Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole seems like an okay one. I mean, obviously Scherzer was a great one. There've been some good $200 million deals, but generally there are definitely teams out there that are just like we'll never buy a $200 million pitcher.
Right. There's some teams will just refuse to do it.
I'm not just talking about like the Pirates and stuff. No. Yeah, there are teams that just won't spend that on pitching.
I would rather, again, free agency is what it is. I'd rather have to spend more than I'd like to get Tucker than spend up at the top of the market to get Framber.
Yeah, but what if Tucker's twice as much as Framber?
I think you're still going to end up happier in the long run with Tucker than Framber. I think that's by a pretty healthy margin. I'm confident that the bat is going to be good for a very long time. That even in the DH years of a 10, 11-year deal, you're going to be okay with Kyle Tucker. I don't know what years 5, 6, and 7 of Framber look like. I think that to me is a huge mystery box.
And I think that the one caveat I want to give is that the guy I'm learning about these bat path metrics and bat speed numbers and learning about their import and in real time with you, the listener. And so, it's possible that I overweight these things. And I think in the case of Tucker, the real interesting thing is he is the kind of player that might outperform bat path and tilt and speed and stuff. You know what I mean? Like he's a guy that you look at the walks and the strikeouts, you're like, oh, he's really good at something here. You know what I mean? Like a 12% walk rate and a 15% strikeout rate. That's the kind of juice that used to tickle me right, And now I'm like a little bit too obsessed with bat speed. But I am worried that what if the ISO drops to like 150? Do you really want a guy who walks 10% of the time, strikes out 15% of the time, has a 150 ISO?
I mean, he had a 198 ISO with a hand injury this year, and that was after 6 straight years of 221 or better.
11-year deal, dude. You're going to get that 150 ISO at some point.
Also, the future overrated, right? If you're close and in the next 5 years, you win a title because you went out and splashed the $400 million on the best available player, are you going to be that sad?
How's that going in San Diego? Future came pretty fast.
He's not Xander, man. He's not Xander.
He's not?
Xander's slander will never end on this show. Never, ever
and it's
going
not,
to end.
In the San Diego situation, it's not just Xander slander. It's just you did too much. You did too much. Yeah. You flew too close to the sun. And it's happening now. The comeuppance is happening now. Now they have nothing to spend and they have one pitcher. So, by the way, sorry, Yu Darvish. We knew the elbow wasn't in good shape. Yu Darvish lost for the season to TJ surgery. Also, sorry, as a flyby real quick, Colorado Rockies, just a quick sorry from me. You thought you might get Amal side away from the Diamondbacks. Nope. You thought you were going to get Foreman from the Guardians. Nope. Britt has been reporting on this. They are now checking out third and fourth guys. Although one of those, Adam Ottavino, a smart dude that we love here on the cast, we've had him on here on Rates and Barrels, and he's a really smart dude. Just doesn't, he hasn't done anything like this before. So that would be kind of out of left field or out of the bullpen per se.
Right out of the pen. I'm going to try to say this as tactfully as I can. I feel like if you are if you're taking that job right now, the Rockies president of baseball operations job, you've either been in baseball for a while, and there's just things about that. It's the dream job that you've described. It's the, I want to work in a difficult situation. It's a great place to live where I can try some stuff and just do something different and have success in a place where no one's really had sustained success. Totally get that. Otherwise, I think it is probably going to be a first timer in the chair because it's such a daunting task. And who knows? Did those talks break down late because of money? Did Dick Monfort come in and have a conversation that made some of those candidates, some of those finalists uncomfortable? I have no idea. But if you don't have the basic support that you want from ownership and you have the opportunity to choose another similar job later, which I think both of those finalists probably do based on what we know about them, then I think you can pass on it. I think if you're in a position of someone like Adam Ottavino where your playing career just ended and you're even having a conversation about being a president of baseball operations, you say, well, this is a fast track to a seat that would take me 5+ years to probably get to if I start doing other things like
Sample did other things, worked with the Phillies for like a year or two and then was made GM.
And that was with Dombrowski already there when he became GM?
That's right. That's right. It would be
so he had somebody above him that had obviously run those departments several times before. I have some sourcing on this issue, which is just that there's certain elements of the team that seem entrenched. And I think there may be some conflicts about how much power are you giving me? Which I think that's in line with our concerns with the owners meddling ownership there. Yeah. So I don't know what caused that to break down last minute, but knowing that the GM meetings are a week away and things fell apart on the Monday before that is not ideal timing. So we'll see what the pivot ends up being.
The week that they fell apart, my sources had suggested that they were about to announce.
Oh, jeez. They were that close. They were that close. Oh man, we have to get the full story on this one.
That seems to me like there's something specific, and I haven't been able to get anybody to tell me what that specific thing. But if you're about to, you're getting close and you're doing a final interview, and they're saying, "Oh yeah, we're about to announce," then there must be the magic question, right? There's and then what about this? And they're like, "Oh no,
we don't do that here."
Yeah, right. Or whatever it is. I don't know. Yeah,
I can only speculate. We have some new managers in the last little while that we haven't talked about. Craig Albernaz, chosen by the Orioles, and I think it was funny that his name had not come up on this show as a candidate for that role. But then after the hire, there was a lot of, hey, good hire. That was a guy people were really into. He was working on the staff with Stephen Vogt in Cleveland, most famously on the internet, perhaps the seed throwing incident with Stephen Vogt, which Vogt explained was actually probably Vogt's fault in the grand scheme of things. But Albernaz sounds like he's going to fit in really well in Baltimore.
We had Kai Correa going to the Mets, which I love as a defensive hire for them. Now Craig Albernaz leaves that staff. I mean, it's a bit of brain drain over there in Cleveland, but he had Vogt put together a good staff. I think he can do it again. He's when you speak to Vogt, you understand where he's coming from and what kind of a person he is. And I think he probably has a pretty good BS detector when it comes to other people. So I think he'll probably hire good people to replace them. I think Albernaz as a young guy for a young team, I think it seems like that's a good call. Walt Weiss is an old dude for an increasingly old team in Atlanta. I don't get as much. I haven't heard as much buzz. I haven't gotten any text messages like, "Oh, what a great hire." Chipper Jones really liked the hire. It's probably because he played with Walt Weiss or something. So, I don't know. That one is just okay.
Walt Weiss made an all-star team in 1998.
I mean, I do like when, like I said this about Ryan Flaherty, I do like when they've been good and they've been bad. I think, Walt Weiss has been an all-star and he's been, a backup.
I mean, he won a World Series with the A's in '89. He's managed before in Colorado, so He's been bad before as a manager in the sense of like,
yeah, right.
he's taken his lumps as a manager. I don't think the tactical decisions of Walt Weiss were the reason
he's very
why
calm.
Those
he's
Rockies
a calm
weren't
dude.
good.
He's a little bit like the Bud Blacks, groups where he's the Bruce Bochy, where he's just a calm dude. I guess he's not going to be, a yeller. It's not a Tony Vitello. Vitello's going to be a yeller. Buck Showalter was a yeller. Miguel Cairo, his name's been bandied around, he's a yeller. But no, Walt Weiss is going to be more, and I guess it's increasingly a veteran team. It's not like a young team anymore in Atlanta.
No, and he was already the bench coach there, so you got familiarity. So I don't have a problem with it, but it's the absolute inverse of a buzzy hire. It really is. The fans are like, oh, Walt Weiss. Sometimes those hires work out just fine. Sometimes the internal promotion for a manager spot ends up being the right fit.
Snicker was a org guy that took them good places. So
yeah. Got anything else coming across the wire before we go? People got a long flight to first pitch, so the longer we can just keep rambling, the better people are on those planes.
Well, I hope to see. I know there's some people listening that we're going to see in first pitch for the first time, and that makes me really happy. So shout out to Duke, who's already on the ground in Arizona.
Duke got there 4 days early, 3 days early.
Yeah, I love it. It's enthusiasm.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If I could,
Discord Hive, like out there, love it. Do that more in the future. I think it's a really great event. It's really fun. And I'm excited. I just have to do my long run tomorrow and then peace out, fam. I'm going. I try to tell them, oh, it's really boring. I am at a conference and we're going to talk about fantasy baseball the whole time. It's going to be super boring. Don't worry, guys. You're not missing anything.
We've been around our homes, I think, ticking all the boxes we possibly can.
I cleaned the car today.
just to make it seem like our absences are not that bad, right? The houses are going to be full of food. Things are going to be really clean. They might not be that way when we get back, but yeah, it's going to be easy, right? Everything's plug and play while we're gone. But yeah, echoing what you said, looking forward to meeting up with Duke and a lot of other people from our Discord, and even people that don't actually use Discord but listen or watch. It's always a good time catching up in Arizona. We are going to go. A reminder, you can join our Discord with the link in the show description. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, for putting this episode together. We're back with you live in Arizona on Saturday.
Thanks for listening.